Welcome to the very first meeting of the Page by Page Book Club. I am your host, Paige Imprint, and I am so excited to be bringing you a weekly book club meeting wherever you get your podcast. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a bookish content creator, and I post on Bookstagram and Book Talk, and honestly, the 3-minute videos were not long enough for me anymore, so I am so excited to get to talk with you all about books in a longer format. Guys, book club is mandatory. I don't make the rules. You must come to book club. That's what's happening. We need a weekly download on all things books and to Yap for an extended period of time, and that's just how it is. So here we are. And here is how we got here. The villain origin story, if you will. I hated reading growing up. In fact, you could not make me read. I would avoid it at all costs, and I hope none of my teachers are watching this right now from middle school, high school, but if you are, I'm so sorry. So I am not one of those stories where I grew up reading. I've always loved reading. That is not me. I am not her. What had happened was I was going on my honeymoon and I did not want to be scrolling on my phone the entire time I was on my honeymoon. And so I picked up 3 books that I found on Book Talk and brought them with me. I brought King of Wrath by Anna Huang, In a Jam by Kate Canterbury, and Powerless by Elsie Silver. I ended up reading In a Jam and King of Wrath while I was on my honeymoon. I absolutely fell in love with reading. So I read King of Wrath first, and I actually was so devastated that the story was over. I loved the experience of reading so much. I didn't even want to start In a Jam because I was like, nothing's going to compare to this. Oh, sweet, sweet Paige. Little did you know what was coming for you. So I get home and I immediately order The Right Move. Talk about starting out with a bang. I read The Right Move in a singular weekend. I wept when that story was over because I was so devastated it was over. Somebody check on her. That is how I knew I was locked in. After that, I got my Kindle. Yes, 3 books in, I got my Kindle and been at it ever since. I read 68 books that first year from July to December 2023, and then 2024 I read 205 books. Bless. And I started my online bookish presence. So that is kind of how we've ended up here today with our book club podcast. I am truly so excited. I cannot even begin to express to you. If we're going to talk about books every week, I might as well tell you a little bit about who I am as a reader, what I like. You can tell me what you like. Drop it in the comments. Shall we start with tropes? I'm sure, as you can tell from the books I brought on my honeymoon, I love a marriage of convenience moment. I do. There is something about the forced proximity and the stakes that come with a marriage of convenience that I feel like it can't be beat. I don't know. That was my first trope that I was drawn to, like, as something that I wanted to pick up. So that will always be near and dear to my heart. But the second thing that will always be near and dear to my heart is romantic suspense. I am a romantic suspense girl. I love that genre with my whole heart. It was my top read genre by far last year. I think I read 60 romantic suspense books. I love that the suspense takes the pressure off of the couple to have an extreme conflict, if that makes sense, because I love high angst. I love high pressure, but I also don't like a third act breakup. So romantic suspense kind of creates the right amount of action for it to still be super engaging while also not adding a ton of pressure to the couple. And then they go hand in hand. I am a small town romance girl. Give me a small town. Give me the rumor mill. Give me everybody and everybody's business. The families. I love everything about a small town. So you will likely find that most of the books I read are small town. There are exceptions to that rule, but there's something so cozy about it. Also, and this is where I'm going to need you to stay with me, okay? I like enemies to lovers. I really do. I think it's great. I think the conflict is fun. I think that the tension is always there. However, I am a friends to lovers girl. I absolutely, completely, and totally adore everything about friends to lovers. Childhood best friends to lovers, give it to me right now. If I see it, chances are it's going on my TBR. I'm not saying I don't like enemies to lovers. I am just saying if I had to choose, I would choose friends to lovers, and that's who I am as a person, and I'm gonna have to ask you to stay with me, even though that is my truth. Finally, the last trope that I really, really love is a morally gray man. Now, did my love for morally gray men start with Megamind? Yes. Yes, it did. And would I change anything about that? No. Is Megamind a cinematic masterpiece? Yes. If I keep talking about it, will I talk about it the whole podcast? Yes. So we're going to have to move on. But there's something about a morally gray man. Like, I think I would want absolutely nothing to do with it in real life, but I'll read it. I'll read it. In fact, I'm going to take it a step further. I would almost rather my husband never say a single thing that I read in a romance book, because there's no way. There's no way if it was actually said to me in real life, I would be into that. But if I read it, I'm in. So, morally gray men in books, yes. Morally gray men in real life, no. And I think we can all agree with that. And if not, take a moment, look within yourself, and start asking some questions, right? Okay, so now we know my favorite tropes. Let's talk about my go-to authors. I was going to do go-to series, but I have an episode coming on that anyway, so I'm going to do my go-to authors and my favorite series from them. My top read author of all time is Catherine Cowles. Per my last email, I am a romantic suspense fan. I will always be eating up romantic suspense. Nobody's doing it like Catherine, I fear. I have read her entire backlog. That puts her as my top read author. My favorite series from her is Lost and Found. That was the first series I read from her. It was my first romantic suspense series as a whole. It holds such a special place in my heart. And so Lost and Found will forever and always be up there for me. It is a small town romantic suspense series following sibling men in uniform, every trope you could ever possibly want, and honestly, every type of MMC that you could want. If you have a particular type when it comes to MMCs, Lost and Found is going to have it. You want a single dad? Great. Grumpy guy? Perfect. Groveling? Sure. Funny guy? Yes. We have them all. So Lost and Found, Catherine Cowles. Once I finished Lost and Found and Tattered and Torn by Catherine Cowles, I was like, okay, what now? Catherine conveniently posted on her story that one of her favorite romantic suspense series was The Adair Family by Samantha Young. And so that took me to Scotland with the lovely, the incredible Samantha Young. Guys, Scottish romantic suspense series? I'm in. Guys with accents on the audiobooks? Yeah. It is about, yet again, a family in small town Scotland. And Lachlan, one of the brothers, owns a members only club for the film and television industry, and it is on this like luxury castle style estate. The setting is phenomenal. I cried when this world was over. So there's the Adair Family series and then the Highland series by Samantha Young. And the Highland series follows the Adair family's friends, and that series just came to an end at the end of 2024 in December, and yeah, I cried. You can find it. It's on social media. It seems as though I will post anything, but man, that world that Samantha created was incredible. My second most read author of all time is Devney Perry, super close to Catherine Cowles. I think it's like 25 and 26 or something like that, and Devney has a beautifully extensive backlog. And she writes such fun small town romances. However, my absolute favorite is, I'm looking at it right now, the Eden series. This is the perfect entry level romantic suspense series in my opinion. It balances just enough romance with just enough suspense. It's not too crazy intense. And I'm actually currently rereading this for a book club with my best friend. We're doing one a month, and they're not only standing the test of time, but they are better than I remembered. And I remember them being phenomenal. So if you have not read The Edens, what are you doing? I'm going to round out the romantic suspense portion of this with speaking about Victoria Wilder. I love everything Victoria does. She writes the strongest, most incredible FMCs I have ever read. She has 2 series out. One is incomplete, one is complete. The Riggs Family series was my final read of my very first year as a reader, and it blew me away. 4 books, again, 4 siblings. And I think all of these that I'm talking about are about siblings. Why not? And their family owns, like, think like an REI, like outdoor supplies company. And they're all involved with the family business in some capacity. And there's elements of suspense. But Victoria writes extremely unique, extremely well done stories. And she immediately went from the Riggs Family series to the Bourbon Boy series. Hello. Why all of a sudden do I want to move to Kentucky? Thanks a lot, Victoria. She has created the coolest little world centered around Fox Bourbon Distillery that these brothers work at, and the most incredible, strong FMCs I have ever read. The elements of suspense are phenomenal. I'm at a loss for words. I cannot begin to express to you how much you need to read the Bourbon Boy series. In fact, you can read it now and get caught up before the last book releases later on this year. Perfectly spicy, perfectly swoony. Last, but certainly not least, chatting about my favorite authors, I want to take a moment to talk about Sarah A. Bailey. Sarah was the Page Imprint Author of the Year for 2024. She consistently writes 5-star reads, but Roman Empire Infinity Star series for me is Pacific Shores. This is based on a coastal California town, follows surfers. There's touches of suspense. It is angsty. It is swoony. Everett Ramos, the MMC in the second book, Wicked and Wildflower, is my favorite MMC literally of all time. Nobody compares. I feel like I talk about this series all the time online, but for good reason. I will never stop talking about it, actually. You cannot make me. Those are a few of my favorite authors. Now, my Roman Empire books. It is time to discuss these. A few of my Roman Empire books fall within those series, citing Hide and Peek by Victoria Wilder, Wicked and Wildflower, Sarah A. Bailey, Sable Peak, Devony Perry, Echoes of You, Catherine Cowles, Northern Twilight, Samantha Young. But these are a few standalones that I will simply never stop discussing. The 7-Year Slip, Ashley Poston. I will not be ranting. This book changed the way I look at relationships. It covers two really, really interesting topics. The first is grief, and it does that extremely beautifully, extremely delicately, and extremely well. The topic that fascinates me most about this book and that changed everything for me is the idea of change blindness. And change blindness is where there are such minute changes over time that you do not see them because you're a part of it every day. So think about aging or like weight gain or weight loss. Because you see yourself every single day or because you see your partner every day, it is hard to notice changes because they're so small over time that by the time you get to an extreme change, you've kind of been eased into it. And so the same goes for a relationship. Over the course of time, your partner will inevitably change. They might change so minutely over time that you don't even notice, but 7 years later, they might be an entirely different person than you originally fell in love with. Oh, dude. It is so mind-boggling to think about. And so, to me, the moral of that story is you need to find someone that you love the core of who they are, their heart, their mind, the unchangeable things about them, the fabric of who they are as a person, because they will change, they will evolve, they will grow, and if you do not love the very core of who they are, it's never going to work because they will change. And so that's what that book is about to me. I fear I will never, ever recover from that. Next, In a Jam, Kate Canterbury. I said that was one of the first books I read. I brought it on my honeymoon. It is, to this day, one of 3 books that I have reread ever. And it stood the test of time. It is still a Roman Empire for me. It is textbook perfection, slow burn romance. Grumpy single guardian. He has loved her forever so much, more than you could possibly comprehend until you get to the end of the book. Marriage of convenience. She was left at the altar. Everything about In a Jam is perfect to me. I will forever and always hold that book near and dear to my heart. I feel like not enough people have read it. Guys, book club, get with the program. Read In a Jam. Last but not least, Roman Empire book for me, Quicksilver. Look, I did listen to this one on audio. The audio performances were phenomenal. I loved that story. I really loved the characters. I loved the reading experience. I know not everyone had that same experience, and hey, that's okay. Fun fact about book club. We can have different opinions and still be friends, right? It is okay if you did not like a book I loved, or if I did not like a book that you loved. That is what makes the world go round. Truly, I want to surround myself with people who have differing opinions from me. If everyone in my circle has my exact same opinion, I don't want to be in that circle. I don't want everyone to be like me. I don't want everyone to think like me. I don't think I'm right and you're wrong. Books are meant to be consumed and enjoyed, and not everyone's going to like it. My favorite ice cream flavor is chocolate chip cookie dough, but it might not be your favorite ice cream flavor. I am not wrong. It is just my favorite. And so that is how we operate in book club. And this brings me to another point about me as a reader that I feel you should know. I read for entertainment purposes. I started reading to get off my screens. I actually pretty much entirely stopped watching TV when I started reading. And I'm not looking for literary excellence. I am not deeply critiquing these books. Now, sometimes books impact me in a deep way where I do want to unpack them like that. However, books are my primary source of entertainment, and I treat them as such. When we watch a TV show, very, very rarely are we like, that was a 5-star TV show. Like, it's just like, oh, the TV show was good. I liked it, or it wasn't for me. And so books are the same for me. I enjoy them. They make me happy. I try to seek out books that I love. I do not want to read things that I know I won't like, so I don't. If a book made me happy, if I loved everything about it, I'm going to rate it 5 stars or whatever stars. Actually, yet again, another thing we should talk about. I have a book rating rubric, and this is how I rate all my books. So when you hear me talking about my book ratings, this is what they are based on. I rate my books off of 7 or 8 different categories, and I go in and I give each category 1 through 5 stars and then average the star rating to get my book rating. So I rate how much I liked the story overall, the MMC, the FMC, the writing style, the conflict, the pacing and engagement. So how likely I was to like want to keep reading, or I couldn't put it down and I couldn't stop listening, that type of thing. Emotional impact and connection. So like, was it deep? Did I feel it? And then rereadability. That was a last minute ad, and it is my willingness or likelihood to reread it. So it's like, would I be willing to reread this book? And all of that averages out to my book rating. I've only had a few 5-star reads this year. This has kind of helped me get a little bit more intentional about my rating instead of just willy-nilly throwing out book ratings based on vibes. I say all that to say, I am reading as a casual reader, as someone who loves romance, who loves love, who just wants to talk about books. This is not the book club for you if you want to get really, really critical about things. I will be critical and I will have takes on things, but I am not here to rip everything apart. I am here to have fun and yap. Okay? Great. I did talk a lot about my like contemporary romance favorites, so I do want to take a moment for romantasy and fantasy. I am kind of a newbie when it comes to romantasy and fantasy. I have read the entire Massiverse. I've read the Empyrean series, so Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, Onyx Storm. I have also read the Everseas series, which I absolutely loved. I'm an auditory learner, so you'll find that most of my romantasy and fantasy reads will be done on audio. I absorb the world building better that way, and that is just my preferred medium to consume that. Hey, before we go further, audiobooks count as reading in this house. In this book club, audiobooks count as reading. And as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, you're welcome to disagree and you're welcome to count your reading differently, but that's how I count my reading, and that's what we do here at the Page by Page Book Club. Cool? Lovely. We are taking care of all of the major conversations in episode 1. We're going to handle all of that. ACOTAR was my introduction to romantasy, and it was such a great introduction. And then I read Throne of Glass, and we'll keep it spoiler free on the pod, but man, maybe I'll have to do an entire episode on that because I sure could. Quickly after reading ACOTAR, I dove into Fourth Wing, and I guess my point in saying all this is that I do really, really love romantasy, and if you have a favorite, drop it in the comments because I would love to keep reading more of this. So anyway, I've been yapping for long enough. I'm going to try to keep these episodes not too crazy long, at least to get us started. But I feel really, really grateful and excited to be starting this, and I hope it is something that we can do together. You can hang out with me while you do your chores or drive to work or whatever it may be. I would absolutely love to eventually have some of my favorite authors join me on here, some of my favorite bookish influencers to join me on here, maybe get Mr. Page in Print involved a little bit. So if there's anything you want to see from book club, please let me know in the comments. I would be more than happy to make this exactly what we want it to be. And I feel really, really grateful and excited to kind of step into a new space with you all. I will have the video format of these up on YouTube. So if that's something you are interested in, feel free to check that out. But I think that's going to wrap us up for the very first episode of the Page by Page Book Club. Don't we love a pun? Get it? Because, like, my name's Paige. Anyway, okay. Well, thank you as always for spending your time with me, and I will see you in the next one.